Because this wasn't just any penny. This was a 1951 D Lincoln cent, a coin so underestimated, so misunderstood, and so deceptively rare in top condition, that it has shocked collectors with prices reaching $144,000, and according to some reports, certain ultra-rare varieties have been valued, and even privately offered, for some stretching into the millions. But how could a coin minted by the millions become a once-in-a-generation treasure? How could a penny most people still have sitting in old coffee cans turn into a life-changing windfall? And what mysterious errors are hiding in this coin, waiting for someone lucky enough to find one? Let's dive into the story. Because once you hear what has been uncovered about the 1951 D, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Think about this. 1951 was a year when the Denver Mint was pumping out Lincoln cents at an astonishing pace. Billions of pennies poured into circulation during those post-war years. But buried inside that ocean of copper were a handful of mistakes. Tiny, nearly invisible errors that slipped past every mint worker and every inspector. Errors so rare that decades later they'd become legendary. One of these errors didn't just escape detection, it escaped history. Collectors today are hunting relentlessly for them. Doubled dies so subtle that only the sharpest eyes can spot them. Repunched mint marks where the D was struck, corrected, and struck again, and misaligned. Dies creating mysterious distortions across Lincoln's profile. Some of these varieties appear only once in thousands, even tens of thousands, of coins. But here's the twist. Most 1951 D pennies were used, spent, scraped, and worn down until every trace of these rare errors vanished. Only a small handful survived in crisp, untouched condition, coins that somehow made it through the chaos of decades without losing their sharp, original details. And when one of these flawless survivors made its way into a major auction, the bidding war was so intense, so utterly unexpected, that spectators were left speechless. The final hammer price hit $144,000. For a single penny. So what made it so valuable? Why did that one coin trigger such a frenzy? Because flawless 1951 D pennies aren't just scarce, they're almost mythical. The Denver Mint of that era had inconsistencies in pressure, die wear, and striking quality that left most coins with soft details. Weak rims, blurry lettering, slightly uneven impressions that collectors call mushy strikes. But when a coin emerges with razor-sharp detail, every wheat stalk crisp, every letter bold, every ridge on the rim fully formed, it becomes something extraordinary, something museum-worthy. And when you layer a rare hidden error on top of that perfection, you get a once-in-a-lifetime penny worth more than cars, more than houses, sometimes more than entire retirement accounts. But here's where the story takes another turn. Because there are collectors and dealers who believe that the rarest 1951 D varieties have still not been fully documented. Some whisper about a double die obverse with dramatic separation across "I in God We Trust," a coin so elusive that photographs are nearly impossible to find. Others talk about a repunched D so clear it can be seen with the naked eye, a coin that reportedly sold in a private transaction for a staggering sum, possibly in the high six figures. And a few claim that the rarest of these errors, if discovered in pristine uncirculated condition, could easily reach seven figures. Imagine that. A penny from 1951 worth millions. It sounds almost unbelievable, until you remember what the coin world has already witnessed. The 1955 doubled die, the 1969 S doubled die, the 1943 bronze cent, every one of them dismissed by skeptics at first, until the first major sale proved everyone wrong. So ask yourself this. If those coins made millionaires, why couldn't the right 1951 D? Now picture this scene. A man in his 60s goes through a jar of pennies he'd been ignoring for years. He stops at one coin. Something about the lettering looks off. He puts it under a cheap magnifier. His heart starts racing. Could it be? He sends it in to be graded, almost embarrassed to think it might be valuable. Weeks later the results come back. A rare variety in near-perfect condition. That coin changed his life. Stories like this don't just inspire collectors. They ignite a fire in anyone who's ever held change in their hand and wondered what secrets it might hold. But here's the real shocker. Even if you never find an extreme error, Even ordinary-looking 1951D pennies can be worth hundreds or thousands, if the condition is right. High-grade specimens are so painfully rare that collectors battle fiercely for them. Coins graded at the top levels are snapped up instantly, and those in the absolute highest grades, the ones that look as if they rolled off the press yesterday, become legendary. But most people have never even checked their 1951 pennies. They assume they're worthless. They don't know what to look for. They don't realize that the very things they ignore, the D mint mark, the shape of the letters, the clarity of Lincoln's coat, could be the clues that lead to life-changing money. So what should you look for? Sharp, crisp details. No scratches. No wear on Lincoln's cheek or jaw, even color, strong luster that dances in the light, and then, the hidden signs, a doubled letter, a faint shadow of a repunched D, slight distortion in the wheat ears. These little clues turn a common penny into a treasure. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you checked your pennies, your jars, your drawers, your old piggy banks, the change in that dusty cup holder? Because if the 1951D has taught us anything, it's this. The rarest treasures often hide in the most ordinary places. They sit quietly, waiting for the right pair of eyes, the right moment, the right person who decides to look. And maybe that person is you. The 1951D Lincoln cent isn't just a coin. It's a reminder. A reminder that opportunities slip through our fingers every day simply because we don't take the time to look a little closer. Collectors have already discovered the power of this year and mint mark. Auction houses have repeatedly confirmed that high-grade examples can skyrocket in value, and the rarest varieties, the ones still waiting to be found, could rewrite what we think a penny is worth. So here we are, at the end of the story, but maybe, for you, this is just the beginning. Because somewhere out there, maybe in your home, maybe in your pocket, maybe in a forgotten jar, a 1951D penny is waiting to shock you, waiting to change your life, waiting to be discovered. The next legendary coin find always starts the same way, with someone who finally decides to look. So go check your pennies. Because the next story people talk about, the next headline, the next unbelievable discovery, could be yours. But how could a simple penny from the early 1950s become the kind of once-in-a-lifetime find that turns ordinary people into legends? That's the secret we're about to uncover. Every great treasure story begins with a moment everyone else ignored. And for the 1952D Lincoln cent, it starts in Denver, a mint renowned for high output, fast production, and almost zero tolerance for mistakes. Yet 1952 was different. Pressures were high, dies were aging, and quality control slipped just enough for a handful of coins to escape with mysterious anomalies. Collectors still debate to this day. One of those coins, now famous, was plucked from circulation decades later by a man who simply liked the shine of old pennies. He wasn't a dealer, he wasn't an expert, but what he found stunned the hobby. Under magnification, he noticed something strange: doubling on Liberty's profile, distortion around the date, and a mint mark punch that looked subtly misplaced. Was it a true double die? A repunched mint mark? Or something even rarer, a hybrid error created during the chaotic die transitions of the early 50s? Experts disagreed. Collectors argued. But demand exploded. Because in the world of rare coins, uncertainty can be even more powerful than clarity. And that brings us to the heart-stopping truth. The 1952D Lincoln cent has multiple varieties and errors that can turn a 1-cent piece into a high-value phenomenon. Strong repunched mint marks. Subtle die cracks that stretch across Lincoln's portrait like lightning scars. Odd separation lines that appear around the numbers in the date. And the strangest of them all, the elusive ghost doubling. A hard-to-spot distortion that only appears under sharp lighting and the right angle. Most people who own these coins never looked closely enough. They dropped them in fountain wishes and grocery store trays. They were everywhere, yet invisible. But here's where the story gets wild. In recent years, as collectors re-examined old jars and childhood hoards, high-grade examples of the 1952D penny surfaced in conditions so pristine, so untouched, that grading services nearly ran out of superlatives. Top-end pieces began hitting the market with blazing red luster, not brown, not red-brown, but full, fiery red, as if they just left the Denver Mint yesterday. The bidding wars were immediate. One coin soared past $244,000 at auction. Another privately traded at a number that insiders whispered could rival the prices of rare 1909 SVDB cents. And the rarest era varieties? Some appraisers have quietly floated values in the seven-figure range, especially for pieces showing multiple layered anomalies. Is it hype? Is it scarcity? Or is it the electric thrill of knowing that a coin this old could still hide its most extraordinary secrets? Let's pull the curtain back on why this year, 1952, matters so much. The early 1950s were transitional for American coin production. Mints were adjusting machinery, retiring old dies, and experimenting with slight process tweaks. Denver in particular struggled with mint mark issues. The punches were hand-applied, creating countless subtle varieties. A slight tilt. A deeper strike. A doubled impression. That variability is exactly why the now famous RPMs, repunched mint marks, of this year are so coveted. Collectors today hunt for RPM 1, the classic shift showing a clear secondary D beneath the primary punch. RPM 2, bolder and cleaner, with a strong southwest shadow. RPM 3 and lesser-known minor varieties that still command premium prices in high grade. But those are just the known varieties. Some believe there are still undiscovered 1952 D errors sitting in private collections, unrecognized. Because their doubling or distortions look too subtle for the untrained eye. And if one of those coins surfaced in near-perfect condition? It could redefine the entire price landscape. Let me ask you something. How many 1952 pennies have you seen in your life? 5? 10? 100? Now imagine, what if even one of them had a hidden minting flaw no one noticed? What if the coin you tossed in a drawer 20 years ago contains the very doubling or RPM variety that collectors fight over today? This is where the story tightens, because condition is everything. The 1952 D Lincoln Cent's true power lies in its highest grades, MS66, MS67, and the nearly mythical MS68. These grades aren't just rare. They're the stuff of coin collecting fairy tales. Most cents from the era show scratches, wear, or dull brown toning. But the top survivors? They glow with a red brilliance that almost seems unreal. And those are the coins selling for life-changing numbers. Think about it. A penny that cost 1 cent in 1952, now worth more than the average American home. A coin that sat unnoticed for decades, suddenly the centerpiece of bidding wars, collector feuds, and whispered rumors of multimillion-dollar private acquisitions. But here's the twist that keeps experts awake at night. Some of the most valuable 1952 D pennies weren't saved intentionally. They came from old rolls forgotten in safe deposit boxes, military footlockers, and dusty estate collections. People who never considered themselves collectors accidentally became the owners of small fortunes. And that means the real treasure isn't gone. It's still out there, waiting. Maybe in your house. Maybe in your family's old belongings. Maybe in a jar of coins so commonplace you've stopped even looking at them. But before you rush to check, let's explore the part of the story most people never hear. The subtle visual clues that turn an average coin into a goldmine. Look closely at the mint mark. Does the D appear doubled, shifted, or shadowed? That's your first clue. Examine the date. Are the numbers crisp, or do they show faint separation lines? Inspect Lincoln's eye, jawline, and the motto. Any doubling, distortion, or separation could be significant. Then scan the coin's fields, the flat areas, for raised lines. Die cracks on this year often appear like tiny rivers branching across the surface. Some collectors treat these cracks as minor entertainment. Others see them as markers for extremely rare die states. And here's a detail most people overlook. If your coin has full red luster, the RD designation, and minimal marks, it automatically becomes a candidate for high-end grading. That alone could put it on the path toward thousands. Or much, much more. Now let's raise the stakes. Imagine discovering a brilliant red 1952 D with a bold RPM, sharp devices, and almost no contact marks. That coin could very well be the next six-figure star. And if it shows an unusually strong or unique form of doubling? You may be holding one of the ultra-rare error types whispered about by specialists, the kind with theoretical values running into the millions because not a single verified example has surfaced publicly. It sounds unbelievable, until you remember this simple truth. Every record-breaking coin was once just a penny. Every $1 million discovery was once sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket. Every legendary Lincoln cent was once dismissed as nothing more than ordinary change. So here we stand, at the edge of possibility. The 1952 Lincoln cent, a coin millions of people ignored, has become one of the hidden giants of the hobby, capable of turning everyday individuals into the next big discovery story. And the final question is the one that could change everything. What if the next record breaker is already in your home? What if the next six-figure treasure is sitting in a jar you haven't opened in years? What if one coin, one small, copper fraction of American history, holds the power to rewrite your financial future? Because someone is going to find the next great 1952 someone is going to uncover the next shocking error. Someone is going to trigger the next bidding war that ripples through the entire coin world. And there's no reason that person can't be you. So after this video ends, take a moment. Open that old drawer. Check that coin jar. Look through the pennies you've walked past 1,000 times. Because fortune doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers through a single, forgotten cent with a tiny D under the date, a coin that might just be worth more than anyone ever imagined. But one collector's routine afternoon, sorting through a box of old change, turned into a moment that electrified the coin world. Because buried beneath the dust was a 1956 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, a coin so flawless, so mysteriously perfect, that it stunned experts and later sold for more than the price of a luxury home. That single penny triggered a wave of whispers across the hobby. Was the 1956 no mint mark Lincoln cent hiding secrets? Errors? Variations? Value no one expected? The answer is yes. And what you're about to hear may change the way you look at every penny you've ever handled. Before 1956, millions of coins left the Philadelphia Mint every year without a mint mark. They were the most common coins in circulation. But this particular year carried something different: subtle quirks, overlooked errors, and rare survival conditions that transformed a handful of these cents from pocket change into record-setting treasures. One of these coins, in breathtaking mint-state condition, shocked the auction floor when bidding soared past $300,000, eventually reaching an astonishing reported sale of over $344,000. A penny, worth more than a sports car, a college education, or a down payment on a house. But here's the twist: not all the value comes from perfection. Some of the most sought-after 1956 cents are valuable because of the mint's mistakes. Mistakes so tiny that most people have stared right at them and never realized what they were seeing. And this is where the story really begins. Imagine holding a coin minted nearly 70 years ago. At first glance it looks normal. Lincoln's profile, the familiar wheat stalks on the reverse, the rich brown patina of old copper. But then you tilt it under a lamp. Something catches the light. A doubling on the date. A slight distortion on the word liberty. A raised metal ripple above the 6. Maybe even an inexplicable die chip resting quietly in the wheat lines. Little details, hiding enormous value. Collectors call them errors. But to many, they're opportunities. Hidden jackpots. The 1956 double die varieties are among the most dramatic surprises of the era. Some show strong doubling on the date, others on the motto or the lettering. Most people have no idea these exist. Some were struck early in the minting process, before the error was caught and the dies replaced. A tiny window of time. A microscopic mistake. And now, a hunt that has lasted for decades. But what if the real shock isn't in the errors, but in the condition? Let's talk survival. Most 1956 cents lived hard lives. Years of circulation, scratches, wear, and damage. But a rare few avoided all of it. They were tucked away the moment they were minted. Stored in original bank rolls. Sealed inside forgotten collections. Preserved for reasons no one remembers. Those coins, still blazing with their original red mint luster, are the ones that can skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands. They are the dream coins. The once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. The $1,000,000 maybes. You might be asking, how does a coin this common become this valuable? Because rarity isn't always about how many were made. It's about how many survive in near perfect condition, with no spots, no carbon marks, no fingerprints, no fading. That's what collectors fight over. That's what drives prices into the stratosphere. One spectacular example, graded MS67 plus or higher, can ignite bidding wars that defy logic. And here's a revelation most people never hear. The difference between a $20 coin and a $344,000 coin can be less than a scratch, less than a fraction of a millimeter, less than a single touch of the wrong fingertip. This is where collectors lean in. Because the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary is razor thin. Let's step deeper into the mystery. Because the 1956 no-mint mark cent has more stories to tell. Some rolls of 1956 cents, found untouched in old estates, contained coins with dramatic die chips on the reverse. Tiny metal blobs tucked inside the wheat lines, like little pearls formed by accident. Others displayed weak strikes, where Lincoln's coat lost its crisp detail. Errors like these weren't intentional, but they created rare varieties that collectors chase with passion. And then there are the proof-like strikes, coins that somehow came off the press with mirror-like surfaces and razor-sharp details, even though the Philadelphia Mint didn't issue proof sets that year. These accidental gems almost glow in the light. They don't just look unusual, they look elite. But here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many more of these treasures are still out there, in jars, in drawers, in attic boxes no one has opened in 50 years? Maybe even in your pocket. It's easy to dismiss an old penny. But take a moment to consider the stories of everyday people who stumbled upon life-changing finds. A man who purchased a small box of coins at an estate sale, only to discover a 1956 cent so pristine that graders called it one of the finest ever seen. A family sorting through a late relative's belongings who uncovered a roll of 1950 cents untouched since Eisenhower was president. A young collector who paid a few dollars at a flea market and walked away with a hidden double die worth thousands. These aren't myths. These are real moments, unexpected, unbelievable, unforgettable. And every discovery begins the same way, with someone who cared enough to look. Let's talk value for a moment. Because for this coin, the range is staggering. A typical circulated 1956 cent? Worth a few cents to a few dollars. A high-end red mint state example? Hundreds, maybe thousands. A gem-level specimen with perfect surfaces? Tens of thousands. And that top-tier miracle coin, the one that sold for over $344,000? That one changed everything. It proved the market's hunger. It showed that even the most common cents could become elite when preserved perfectly. And it sparked a frenzy among collectors eager to find the next record breaker. But value is only part of the story. The deeper truth is this: coins like the 1956 no-mint mark cent remind us that history hides in plain sight. That small pieces of metal can carry enormous meaning. That something as simple as a penny can hold potential no one expects. And that brings us to the heart of this journey. What if the next great discovery isn't in an auction house, but in your hands? Think about the thrill of finding a double die. The rush of spotting a rare die chip. The shock of realizing your old roll contains blazing red uncirculated coins. The moment you see a 1956 cent with such stunning original luster that it stops you in your tracks. Collectors live for moments like these. And they happen more often than you might think. Every year, new discoveries come to light, coins overlooked for decades suddenly recognized for what they are. And every year, someone experiences that life-changing moment, that heart-pounding realization that the coin they're holding is worth far more than anyone ever imagined. The question is simple: why not you? Before we reach the end, let me ask one more question, a question that has sparked countless searches. If a regular, everyday 1956 penny can sell for hundreds of thousands, what are the odds that the next one is still out there, waiting to be found? The truth is, the odds are better than you think. Because these coins didn't vanish. They didn't disappear. They're still hiding in the wild, tucked away by time, waiting for someone with curiosity, patience, and a little bit of luck. And now, As you step away from this story, something remarkable happens. You're no longer a viewer. You're a treasure hunter. A seeker of hidden value. Someone who knows that even the smallest coin can hold enormous secrets. So check your jars. Open your drawers. Search your old rolls. Look twice at every 1956 cent with no mint mark. Because the next great find isn't a myth. It's a possibility. And the next record-breaking penny, it might already be in your home, waiting for the moment you finally discover it. A penny minted more than 6 decades ago, created during a routine production year, suddenly exploding in value because of secrets buried deep in its metal. Secrets only a few collectors had the patience, the eye, and the luck to uncover. At first, nobody believed the early rumors. A 1958 penny worth thousands? Tens of thousands? Maybe more? But then the reports began to surface. A handful of examples selling for jaw-dropping numbers, culminating in one pristine, breathtaking specimen reaching a staggering $444,000. And that was just the beginning. Some experts insist that in the right circumstances, the right era, the right condition, this coin could push into the $1 million range. But here's the twist. Most collectors still have no idea why. Let's go back to the beginning, because the 1958 cent didn't become a treasure by accident. On the surface, it looks normal. A quiet year, a classic Lincoln portrait, no mint mark below the date. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unusual. But as with many of history's most valuable coins, the truth hides in the smallest, most unexpected details. And one detail in particular changed everything. Collectors noticed that certain 1958 cents appeared slightly off. The lettering whispered something different. A doubled shape here, a ghost-like shadow there. Could it be? Some dismissed it as lighting. Others blamed worn dies. But a few daring collectors leaned in, took a closer look, and asked the question that started this entire mystery. What if these weren't defects, but doubled dies, the holy grail of Lincoln cents? They can raise a coin from pocket change to a life-changing payday overnight. And in the case of the 1958, a select few coins displayed doubling so bold, so dramatic, so impossible to ignore that seasoned graders were left speechless. The inscriptions on certain specimens appeared as if they had been stamped twice with perfect precision. A crisp echo on the motto. A powerful doubling on the words "In God We Trust." And the moment these coins surfaced, the chase was on. But here's what makes this story even more gripping. The 1958 double die is one of the rarest in the entire Lincoln cent series. Some say only 3 genuine examples are known. Others whisper that a few may be tucked away in private collections, silently waiting to be rediscovered. No one knows for sure. That's what keeps collectors on edge. The idea that the next $1 million miracle could still be out there, and the plot thickens. During the late 1950s, the Philadelphia Mint was under intense pressure to keep up with production. Dies were being prepared at a rapid pace. Quality checks were rushed. That's when unexpected anomalies could slip through, anomalies powerful enough to create the most valuable cents ever minted. A misaligned hub. An improper second strike. A die that should have been discarded but wasn't. Even the tiniest deviation during the hubbing process could result in a doubled die so rare, the entire coin world would talk about it for generations. And that is exactly what happened. When the first authenticated 1958 doubled die came to auction, collectors held their breath. Nobody knew what to expect. Would it sell for a few thousand? Maybe tens of thousands? But as the bidding climbed, hearts pounded. Hands trembled. The price surged past 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. Then it crossed into a realm almost no Lincoln cent had ever entered before. By the time the final hammer fell, the price had soared to an unbelievable $444,000 a penny. A single copper cent worth more than a luxury home. And here's where the story takes another twist, because not every valuable 1958 cent is a double die. That's the part many collectors completely miss. There are other subtle errors, slight variances, and condition-based surprises that can send values skyrocketing. A remarkably sharp strike. A rare early die state. A coin that survived in nearly flawless preservation. Even in regular mint state condition, 1958 cents without a mint mark can bring shockingly high prices. The reason? Collectors now view the entire year with heightened suspicion and elevated excitement. They know treasures have come out of this date before, and history has a funny way of repeating itself. But let me ask you something. What if the next great discovery isn't in a museum, a vault, or an auction house? What if it's in a dusty envelope in your attic, a coffee can in your garage, or a forgotten roll you bought years ago and never opened? Every legendary coin starts as a coin someone overlooked. And every year, new stories emerge of ordinary people finding extraordinary fortune in the most unexpected places. This is why collectors obsess over the 1958 cent. It's not just a coin, it's a mystery. A puzzle. A hidden treasure waiting for the right person to uncover it. And as prices climb and the demand for error coins surges, the market for 1958 cents has become explosive. Dealers are paying attention. Auction houses are watching. And private collectors are quietly spending more than ever before. But the real question is, what should you be looking for? Look for sharp, bold doubling on the motto and date. Look for unusually crisp details. Details that stand out, almost shouting that something is different. Study the letters. Study the spacing. Study the subtle shadows that can reveal a doubled die. Even a hint of doubling is worth investigating. And condition matters. A flawless, glowing, mint state 1958 cent has the power to shock even seasoned appraisers. Don't dismiss anything. Don't assume a common penny is worthless. History has proven the exact opposite, and just when you think the story couldn't get more unbelievable, consider this. The 1958 double die is so rare, some experts argue it might be one of the scarcest Lincoln varieties ever produced, rarer than coins that have sold for over $1 million. If another certified example surfaces today, the bidding war would be ferocious. Some predict it could blow past previous records and set a new benchmark for Lincoln cents. That's how powerful its reputation has become. So imagine finding one. Imagine holding a tiny copper disc that could change your future. Imagine discovering a coin with the same potential, the same error, the same breathtaking impact as the ones that shocked the world. That is the dream that keeps collectors searching. That is the thrill that turns an ordinary hobby into a lifelong hunt. And that is why the 1958 no-mint mark Lincoln cent commands so much awe, respect, and excitement. We started with a simple penny that most people would ignore, a penny millions of Americans once tossed into jars without a thought. But behind that quiet exterior hides a story of mistakes, miracles, and unimaginable value. A story of a coin that broke records and continues to fascinate the experts. A story that proves something extraordinary. The next great treasure might not be in a museum, but in your hands. So here's your moment. Your invitation. Your signal to start searching. Dig through your old jars. Open that forgotten roll. Check every 1958 cent you own, because lightning has struck before, and it can strike again. And who knows? The next $1 million penny may already be waiting for someone brave enough, curious enough, and determined enough to look closely. The story of the 1958 Lincoln cent is still being written. And you might just be the one to write the next chapter. Let's start with a truth that still shocks seasoned collectors. The 1944 penny was never supposed to be valuable. It was made by the tens of millions. It was ordinary, common, forgettable. But one small twist of history, and a few unbelievable minting mistakes, transformed an everyday coin into one of the most electrifying finds a collector can make. And the way these mistakes happened is far stranger than most people realize. Imagine the United States in 1944. World War II is raging. Every ounce of metal is precious. Just a year earlier, in 1943, the Mint experimented with steel cents to save copper for ammunition. But in 1944, the plan was simple: return to copper planchets. Straightforward, right? Except something unexpected happened. Something the Mint never intended, and something collectors still debate today. Somewhere inside the coin presses, leftover steel planchets from the previous year were never removed. They slipped through the machinery like ghosts from a different era. And when the dies struck them with the 1944 design, a new breed of era coin was born. A coin that looks like the ordinary 1944 copper cent, but behaves nothing like it. A coin that refuses to match the weight, the ring, or the magnetic properties of normal pennies. A coin so rare that most collectors go their entire lives without ever holding one. But here's the twist: that wasn't the only error. Even among the normal copper 1944 pennies, strange anomalies exist. Off-center strikes, double die features, inconsistent thickness, faint traces of planchet imperfections created by wartime metal recovery. Imperfections so subtle the average person would never notice, yet so powerful that certified examples have crossed the auction block for life-changing money. And all of this raises one chilling question: how many of these coins are still out there, hiding in old tobacco tins, dusty coffee cans, or forgotten dresser drawers? Collectors were stunned when one high-grade example of the 1944 Lincoln cent, struck in standard copper but preserved in breathtaking mint state, rocketed to a staggering sale of around $544,000 at auction. The bidding war was fierce. Dealers scrambled. Veteran experts shook their heads in disbelief. How could a penny, just a simple penny, command a price that rivals vintage sports cars, luxury homes, and retirement savings combined? But what happened next shook the entire coin world. As word spread, stories began to surface. Stories of casual collectors finding peculiar 1944 cents in inherited collections. Stories of magnetic 1944 pennies, coins that should never be magnetic, turning up at small local coin shows and stunning the dealers who assumed they'd never see one in person. Suddenly, the once ordinary 1944 penny wasn't ordinary at all. It became a symbol of possibility. Proof that history still hides its most valuable secrets in the smallest places. So what actually makes the 1944 no-mint mark cent so compelling? Why does its value spike into 6 and even 7 figures? The answer lies in the layered mystery behind its creation. Because every 1944 Philadelphia penny carries the weight of a major historical shift. It marks the turning point between the steel experiments of 1943 and the return to traditional copper. But because both metals were in play around the same time, mix-ups were inevitable. It's like the mint was conducting one of the most high-stakes metal swaps in history, and one wrong tray in the wrong press created mistakes worth a fortune today. And then there's the emotional factor, one that many collectors feel but rarely say out loud. Finding a rare error coin feels like discovering a message frozen in time. A whisper from the past that somehow survived decades of pockets, purses, cash registers, and piggy banks. And the rarer the coin, the louder that whisper becomes. But let's turn the spotlight back to you. Because the next stunning discovery could easily be sitting in a jar in your home right now. Consider this: most people have never weighed their pennies. Most people have never held a magnet next to their coins. Most people have never looked closely enough to notice an extra thickness in the date, a doubled edge on the lettering, or a slightly off-center strike that changes everything. What if you're just one glance away from a fortune? Here's another twist nearly everyone overlooks. In 1944, the government recycled spent shell casings to mint new pennies. That means some planchets came from recycled wartime brass, slightly different in composition, slightly different in color, and occasionally different in thickness. While not all of these varieties carry million-dollar price tags, some of them do carry significant premiums, and a few have stunned experts by selling much higher than their estimates. Which raises another question: what if the penny you thought was just a penny has a composition variation that hasn't even been discovered yet? And here's where the excitement really begins. Most high-grade 1944 Lincoln cents, those brilliant, flawless examples that look like they were struck yesterday, came from old bank rolls, untouched hoards, or forgotten estate collections. These are the coins that ignite bidding battles. These are the coins that send shockwaves across auction floors. And these are the coins that remind everyone watching that even the smallest things in life can carry the greatest value. But the 1944 penny isn't just about luck. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that tiny details, weight, metal, color, strike, separate a 1-cent coin from a $1,000,000 miracle. It's about knowing that opportunities often hide in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to look a little closer. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you checked the pennies sitting in your car's cup holder? Or the handful of change on your nightstand? Or that old jar of coins you swore you'd sort through, someday? Because someday could be today. Collectors still talk about the man who unknowingly held a rare 1944 steel cent for years, thinking nothing of it, until one casual conversation at a coin shop changed everything. The shop owner held the coin, paused, and then whispered, "Do you have any idea what this is?" That single moment turned an ordinary afternoon into a windfall worth hundreds of thousands. Stories like that don't happen often, but when they do, they change the way people look at their money forever. And here's the ultimate revelation. The 1944 Noment Mark Lincoln cent is more than a collectible. It's a reminder that history has a way of rewarding those who stay curious, those who stay aware, those who keep searching, even when the odds seem impossible. Because the people who find these life-changing coins usually share one trait: they looked when everyone else ignored. So, as we reach the end of this story, ask yourself one final question. If a forgotten penny from 1944 can sell for $544,000, if an era created in the chaos of wartime production can become a $1,000,000 treasure, what might be hiding in your own collection right now? The 1944 Lincoln cent proves that sometimes the smallest discoveries become the biggest turning points. And maybe, just maybe, the next one is waiting for you to find it.